Good morning, everyone. I, Vazir Lal, on behalf of the Moodgood Society, welcome you all today to the webinar on life, law, and litigation at the Supreme Court of India. Today's webinar is another edition under our Happy to Guide initiative, where we organize workshops and webinars with the academic stalwarts of our college, who share their knowledge and experience of different fields of law with our students. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Advocate Aditya Manubarwala. Sir is currently practicing at the Supreme Court of India, National Company Law Tribunal, and other commercial tribunals. Sir has done his Masters in International Commercial Law from the University of Cambridge. Sir was serving as a law clerk cum a research assistant at the Supreme Court of India from 2018 to 2019 and was the incumbent Global Peace Ambassador to India in the year 2018 and 2019, appointed by the Center for Peace Studies, Sri Lanka. Aditya sir is the youngest member on the advisory board of the Asian African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, having been appointed in December 2019. Sir has previously served as a special advisor on the international law and affairs to Najibullah Azad, the then spokesperson to the President of Afghanistan. Sir has also served as an attaché to the office of the Speaker of Lok Sabha and is the youngest Indian to have deposed before a committee of the Parliament in the Indian legislative history at the tender age of 19. Sir was selected as an Indian delegate at the Howard Asia Conference, Hong Kong, and has published articles on various topics in 9 countries, including India, Afghanistan, Belgium, Pakistan, Nepal, USA, UK, Bangladesh, and Thailand. Aditya sir's entire graph to now is no less than a dream and a path that all of us want to carve for ourselves. We extend our heartiest gratitude to Sir for being with us here today. Now request Sir to commence with the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, firstly. So it's good to be back to my college, although virtually. And hi there, how are you?
Hello, sir. Good morning. I'm good.
I'm sorry, your voice
How are
is
you?
cutting. Your voice is cutting. I cannot hear you.
So she's having a technical difficulty. Could you just give us 2 seconds and then she'll resume the
problem.
session?
No problem. No problem.
Am I audible?
Yes, we hear audible, but you're not visible.
Am I audible and visible?
Yeah, you're visible, but you're cutting. You're cutting quite a lot.
Really sorry, sir. It's just basic technical difficulties.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible. Yes.
Okay. Good morning, sir, and good morning, participants. Today's webinar will be in the form of a questionnaire. I'll be asking questions to sir, and sir will be answering accordingly. So the very first question we have for you, sir, is, being a young advocate, how would you describe the working and experience at the Supreme Court of India?
Well, I think I think the Supreme Court, or practicing as a lawyer in general, as a law student, firstly, I would tell all of you who are participants here, is that I think law is like a buffet. So it's a buffet with unlimited dishes, and you can make whatever combination you want out of it, and you can eat as much as you want. So firstly, the number of options available for you are unlimited. You can literally pick and choose and make a combination and specialize, super specialize, or generalize in as many things as you want. Firstly. Secondly, there is no competition. That is the best part of our profession. So the sky is the limit. Work is endless. So if we think about the Supreme Court, for example, if you are having around 70,000, 80,000 special leave petitions filed every year, then the sky is the limit. You can do as much you can. It all depends on who is briefing you. So yes, definitely. I think it is. There are challenges, although there are challenges practicing in the Supreme Court. You are in the top court of the country. You are rubbing shoulders with the best. But then that is also an opportunity because you get to learn immensely. You get to grow immensely. You learn from everyone. You learn from your seniors. You learn from your colleagues. You learn from juniors. You learn from peons. You learn from clerks. You learn by just sitting in court. So it is endless. And I am fortunate to have started here in the Supreme Court. So my journey started as a law clerk cum research assistant at the Supreme Court of India. I was appointed by the Chief Justice of India, and then I was later on deputed to Mr. Justice Vineet Saran, Judge of the Supreme Court. He's currently also a sitting judge of the Supreme Court. While there, I got exposed to multiple kinds of litigation, multiple kinds of work. So I worked on 1,000 cases. So in fact, I stayed on a little further to complete the magic figure of 1,000. So when you have worked on 1,000 SLPs in some or the other capacity, you come across the length and breadth of the law. You understand how diverse it is. You understand what we in Mumbai do is just the tip of the iceberg. So say we in Mumbai are focused towards commercial litigation. I have done my master's also in commercial litigation at Cambridge. But then there is so much more than just commercial litigation and writs and original side at Bombay High Court or real estate litigation. There is just so much more. And I got that chance at the Supreme Court as a law clerk. After that, I commenced my practice in Delhi itself. I started, so because I was a law clerk, there was a 1 year cooling off period in which I could not appear at the Supreme Court of India. Because as you're a law clerk, you are close to many judges apart from your own judge. You are close to and with many other sitting Supreme Court judges. So the Supreme Court, as a matter of policy, has decided that after you complete your tenure for a year, you cannot practice in the Supreme Court. So I started my career in the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal (NCLAT) and the Bombay High Court. So I was in Delhi, but I would fly down to Bombay. I was lucky to have been briefed by many firms. So yes, it was interesting. Then once I started catching my getting things in order, you know, when you are just starting practice, you realize you have to grapple with a lot of things you never thought you have to. So life is easier as a student. It is luxury. It's a luxury to research. It's a luxury to debate. It's a luxury to participate in moot courts. But when you are a lawyer, apart from the law, there are many other things where you have to apply your mind. So I had to learn grappling with all of that while learning to manage my finances and so many other factors which we don't think are factors, but they are. They definitely are. And yeah, I was briefed quite a lot in NCLAT. My first case was in the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. And then, as luck would have it, we all got subsumed and swarmed and absorbed by the pandemic. So I was no different. Initial few months were challenging because you started off on your own, your junior counsel, and suddenly you have everything at standstill. So that was interesting. After that, we all learned out that this is the new normal, and we had the regime of virtual hearings, which I think are there to stay. And yes, it was interesting. Meanwhile, as luck would have it, I got admission in Cambridge for my master's, and I went to the UK amongst this raging pandemic and uncertainties. But that was interesting, particularly interesting because I completed my 1 year of cooling off period in that period. So I started my career practicing in the Supreme Court while being at UK. So my practice started in the UK. Although I was practicing in the Indian Supreme Court, my first appearance as a lawyer in the Supreme Court was from Cambridge. So that was interesting. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. How is the Indian judiciary dealing with the COVID situation? Will online courts as a trend continue in the future as well?
I think it should in an hybrid format. It should to an extent. There are challenges. There are definitely challenges associated with virtual hearings. So in fact, see right now you are sitting in Mumbai. I'm sitting in Delhi. These are considered the most developed cities of the country, and we had to spend 5 minutes in the technical snack that we did, right? So if we have these challenges being in premier towns of India, in the hinterland, because law and litigation is not just at the Supreme Court or the Bombay High Court or the NCLAT or arbitral tribunals. These are fancy litigations. The real law, the real law which you see at grassroots happens in district courts. It happens in magistrate courts. It happens in hinterland India, and that is where the bulwark of judiciary strength also has to be seen. Because if justice is not seen to be done, then that justice is meaningless. So I think in those places, internet connectivity is a major issue. If those things can be addressed under Prime Minister Modi, we have started an optical fiber network across the length and breadth of India, intending to connect most major villages with broadband network. So let's see how this policy goes, whether because policies sound good on paper, but the devil lies in the detail in terms of implementation. So this is one major challenge. But speaking from the perspective of higher forums like the High Court or Supreme Court or commercial tribunals like NCLAT, I feel that the regime is definitely here to stay, maybe in an hybrid format. So in the Supreme Court, we have Mondays and Fridays as miscellaneous days. Those are days when special leave petitions are heard from the length and breadth of the country. Say before a bench, on an average, there would be at least 60 to 70 special leave petitions on Monday and 60 to 70 on Friday. So that is a lot of work, and courts are brimming with people at that point of time. It leads to many inefficiencies. I think as lawyers, you learn how to become quasi or semi wrestlers also. So you wrestle your way through the court to go ahead. Your juniors cannot come along with you many times because the court is so full. So I think in those situations, irrespective of the pandemic, on Mondays and Fridays, in the Supreme Court at least, I can speak with authority. I definitely recommend that we should have virtual hearings. Virtual hearings are the way forward on those days, because 60 to 70 cases and just 2 to 2.5 hours time. So you have 2 to 2.5 hours period of time when you are the court is sitting in session on Mondays and Fridays, and 60 to 70 cases. You get 30 seconds to 1 minute. So your skill as a lawyer is also to present a point, convince the judge to admit the case for further hearing in just 30 to 60 seconds. You're doing this while you're surrounded in a cacophony of noises. You have people out here, you have bad breath coming, you have sweat falling on you. It is quite a challenge, and you are in ultimately the topmost forum of the country. So I think in those situations, the virtual hearing regime should definitely remain. But having said that, see, I come from Mumbai. I have shifted base to Delhi. But there is and this is something which not most lawyers from Delhi will like to admit, but there is a section of lawyers in Delhi who feel that they have a privilege by the very geographical position of being in Delhi. So they are somewhere, I think, challenged, or they feel nervous, or they feel intimidated with the prospects of a lawyer from Mumbai or Ranchi or Raipur or Kolkata or Guwahati appearing from there in the Supreme Court. They feel, अरे ये लोग सब आने लगेंगे तो हमारी रोजी रोटी का क्या? But I think we as lawyers should have wider shoulders. We should think, not, as I said, competition is not a challenge. Competition only makes you better. So I think if that section, and those are very senior lawyers, I think if they show a bit of magnanimity and say that it's okay, we can have virtual hearings in a hybrid format, then I think this regime will be there to stay, and it is desirable that it stays. In a hybrid format, ultimately the charm of appearing in court physically in a final hearing matter remains when you are in court. There are many things which a personal chemistry, a way of convincing, maybe perusing papers, you cannot do that in a virtual setup as efficiently. In fact, this is what Mr. Shekhar Nafde, a senior lawyer in the Supreme Court, was recently saying. So I was waiting for my matter in the lobby, and he was being opposed by Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General, and he said that I request my lords to have a physical hearing, because I'm not that comfortable arguing a final hearing matter over laptop. I have my challenges. So if this was a senior lawyer who was saying so. So yes, there is a strong section which thinks that physical hearings should be the only thing which happens. But then there are people like us who feel that competition is not a challenge.
All right, sir. The next question we have is, how do you manage and balance between your work life, social life, and personal life, considering the long working hours?
Who says I'm balancing? Who says I'm managing? Or who says anyone is managing or balancing? I think I think perfectionism is an illusion. Being perfect is an illusion, and one must acknowledge that and not be hard on oneself. As a young lawyer, particularly, you have a lot of things to do. So, in my case, apart from practicing in the Supreme Court, being in Delhi, I'm also in the policy sector. So, I am an advisor to certain constitutional functionaries in India, in Delhi. So, that is a policy function that I discharge. Apart from law, apart from litigation, because this session's title is Law, Life, and Litigation. I think litigation, apart from your practice as a counsel, apart from reading your briefs, apart from drafting, apart from doing as they say वकालत करने के अलावा भी काफी काम होते हैं वकील को करने वाले. So I think one is client development. A lot of time, most people will not like to acknowledge this, but I am here out for a free and frank discussion. So I think a lot of time goes in putting yourself out before people. You're a young lawyer. Sometimes people have their doubts that this guy is so young, would he be able to discharge and efficiently represent me? So you have to meet them, you have to talk to them. You have to, apart from this, you have the very challenges of living alone. So I live all alone in Delhi. My family is in Mumbai. Apart from that, you must stay fit. So I pay a lot of emphasis on working out. So whatever it is at the end of the day, somehow I manage to snug in at least 45 minutes to 1 hour at the gym. So I think we don't balance it per se. We strive towards achieving a degree of normalcy to that extent which is needed for living life. Because life is not just litigation. Life is also life. So you need to try and do as many things as you can while not losing your sanity. And I think this is particularly so for junior lawyers because we don't have the luxury of appointing many juniors or paying them salaries, doling out salaries. We have to do it ourselves. So yes, I think it is interesting, but one must always remember there is no balance. Balance is the wrong word. I think it is you are trying to do things which you ought to do to the best extent possible, and if you are not able to do it, it's okay. Take a chill pill. I mean, relax. After your hard day's work, just relax, watch some Netflix, relax, have a beer if you want to, and just take it easy sometimes because you can't always keep those grim, serious faces. I think that's समथिंग यू डू इन द कोर्ट पूरा दिन करते हो वकील हो वकालत करते हो पैसे मिलते बस दैट्स ओके बट ट्राई एंड मेंटेन अ बैलेंस आई थिंक दैट्स व्हाट आई कैन से
All right, sir. Thank you. The next question is, according to you, which key policies are lacking in the current Indian legislation?
That's very vague, my friend, because there are multiple legislations. There are multiple policies, there are multiple problems. Drafting is not done properly. So I work closely with the Lok Sabha, and from that experience, I can tell you that many a times policies are not vetted properly, policies are not drafted properly. So one module that I did whilst at Cambridge was legislation, a subject. So my entire focus was on legislation. I was seeing how legislations are drafted across the globe. And one thing which India lacks, I think, because see, ultimately a policy or a law is as good as the logic behind the law, the mischief that you're trying to remedy. So I think one thing which is lacking is wide consultation. I think in India, we definitely, the need of the hour at the parliament, at least some form of consultation is done. But at state legislature level, consultation is not done. You don't consult stakeholders properly. Forget state legislatures, ये तो बहुत बड़ी बात हो गई. Municipal level, law is not just a law which you see in parliament. Law is not a law which is passed by the state assembly. Law is a lot of administrative actions which are done through circulars. Frontline administrators do it. They are like your mayor. They are your municipal officers. They pass circulars. They pass GR, government regulations. There is no consultation. There is no overseeing body. Lawyers are not trained. I think legislation and legislative drafting is a skill which has to be learned. It is not something that you can just do and come in an office and start doing howsoever intelligent you are. So I think in abroad there are specialist wings which train lawyers and create specialist lawyers for the mere purpose of legislative drafting. I think that is something which we lack in India, and we must definitely moving forward, do something on that. Maybe national law schools, I'll urge national law schools, and I'm in contact with many vice chancellors that you all should make specialist LLM courses, master courses on legislative drafting. So we need a cohort of young intellectuals who have been trained in this to aid and assist policymakers. I think that is one major area which I like to point out. Again, as a lawyer here and even as a law student, I had the pleasure of meeting the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Yogi Adityanath, just early in his tenure. And a recommendation which I made him humbly was that you should reactivate your state law commissions. So we have the law commission at the central level, which vets and goes through laws on a periodic basis, comes out with beautiful suggestions. Indian Law Commission at the central level is referred to by so many African countries, so many Caribbean countries. They rely on our report directly. So, but the state law commissions are inactive. So I suggested the Chief Minister that you please activate your law commission, make it robust, infuse it with fresh talent, with lawyers, with young professionals. And I am happy to know that he did it. And I think at this moment, Uttar Pradesh State Law Commission is one of the best in the world, in the country. In the country, it is one of the best. It comes out with more reports, more research than any other state law commission. I think as lawyers, and especially as lawyers from these privileged cities like Mumbai and Delhi, we look at the macro picture only. We only look at things from a centralized way. But the real humdrums and real administration, real laws are done by state assemblies, are done by your provincial level gram panchayats, by your municipal corporations. And this is an area which we must focus on, and we must urge policymakers also to make specialist branches to aid and assist this. बाकी तो कानून बहुत है, पॉलिसीज बहुत है, उसमें दिक्कतें बहुत है, प्रॉब्लम्स बहुत है. That's an endless discussion. Maybe an entire lifetime will be less to discuss it. But on a broader prism, I feel these two things should be focused on.
All right, sir. Thank you. We have one question from our participants. What would you suggest to a first generation lawyer who wants to move to Delhi, whether or not it's a good decision? And if so, what's a foolproof way to go through the shift?
Is there a foolproof way in life? Forget law, forget litigation. Is there a foolproof way in life? I don't think so. So see, they say, I think this is something I would also like to say. Laga to tir varna tukka. So if you are able to, I mean, you have to try your luck out. You have to put in your hard work. You have to put all that you have. And then if you are lucky, I mean, of course, you have to have a bit of luck, right? Luck is like the magic sprinkling, which is done. Hard work is nothing. Hard work is definitely something which is inalienable. You have to do the hard work, but you have to be backed with the requisite luck. And if you are lucky, you're at the right place at the right time, then things work out magically. If not, then they don't, how much ever hard work you put. So that's why I said, laga to tir varna tukka. But having said this, to be more specific to our friend, I feel that if you are, I can advise from a litigation perspective, because I don't see any other reason for anyone to move to Delhi apart from litigation. Otherwise, from the corporate perspective, I think Mumbai is heaven. I think Bangalore is doing pretty good. You have law firms cropping around the entire length and breadth of the country. But litigation is unique in Delhi because you have so many appellate tribunals. You have a lot of work coming in, and your clients will not be only from your state. Your clients will be across the length and breadth of your country. So the first matter that I got as a lawyer was from Andaman and Nicobar. So one would say you're from Mumbai, Andaman and Nicobar se kahan se mila? Mil gaya. I met a lawyer in the Supreme Court. We chatted and he liked me. He was a prominent lawyer in Andaman and Nicobar. There was the Port Blair bench of the Calcutta High Court had an appeal coming to Supreme Court. He was kind enough to refer it to me. And so that is how I got my first matter. So that is the point. When you are in Delhi, you can get work across the length and breadth of the country. My first case in NCL80 was from Odisha. Odisha, power distributor from Odisha. I've had cases from Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Odisha, Jharkhand, Kolkata, Andaman, Uttarakhand. So the list is endless. So I think that is one thing which is an advantage if you move to Delhi. I would suggest that I think if you are able to become a law clerk at the Supreme Court, then that gives you a ringside view of the way the Supreme Court works. The Supreme Court is ultimately the court where people from across the country come. You can network well there, you can meet people, you can learn the law, you can learn diverse laws, you can see how seniors argue. And if you are on good terms with your judge, then your judge, the Supreme Court judge you're working with, may promote you, may encourage you. So I think that would be a safer bet to come to Delhi. Plus, if you come initially, of course, you need money in your pocket. You would not want to be dependent on your parents. So the salary is good as a law clerk. You get 65,000, which I don't think most lawyers would get initially in their first year of practice easily. So I think becoming a law clerk, learning, working hard, researching, networking, being on the good books of your judge, I think all of this combined would put you in a better position than say any boy who just randomly walks up to Delhi after getting his enrollment or sanad from Mumbai or elsewhere, anywhere in the country. But networking is a major thing, which is not very much emphasized. In fact, the way we have been trained in our Indian education system, if somebody has an achievement, if somebody wins a moot court or a debate, and he puts it off on Facebook or on WhatsApp or shares it, then they say ये तो साला बड़ा ही मार रहा है. He is acting smart. He is pompous. But that is not the thing. This mentality which we have in our country should change. So I have been abroad for some time. I have seen that there, if you have achieved something and you let it out and you let people know, people are interested to know how you did it, what you did, how you did, what you did exactly. And they want to collaborate. So if they are, say, someone who perceive themselves to be little inferior to you or who are junior to you, they will want to collaborate, they will want to learn from you. They will not get jealous of you, they will want to learn from you. If they are better than you, if they are superior to you, then they will say, okay, this boy is smart, let's collaborate with him, he may be of utility to me, because ultimately I can't do everything. And I think that is something which we do in litigation also. So I have been blessed to have very good mentors here in Delhi, people who are much senior to me, much more accomplished, but very humble, very humble. And when they see any achievement, they see anything, they call me up, they congratulate me, they want to know how I did, what I did, and they many times refer you work. They're saying, Acha, chalo, he's a bright boy, let's refer him work, let's reduce our pressure. People younger are the ones who want to learn from you. And people your age, आपके हम उम्र के जो लोग हैं, people your age, they should ideally collaborate with each other. As I said, in law there is no competition. Law is like a buffet. It is a buffet with endless opportunity, endless disease. So I think this is one area where we in our education system lack, and that is something we must focus on, and that leads to better networking. So I became one of the youngest people to appear before a committee of parliament. I was 19 that time. I spoke in parliament before 30 members of parliament. That got reported in 400 newspapers across the length and breadth of the country. Now, through that, many bureaucrats, many politicians, many lawyers, they got to know who the hell Aditya Manu Barwala is. They got to know who this person is, and they were magnanimous enough to talk to me, encourage me, support me. So I think if people don't know you exist, if people don't know what your work is, now many times people write articles and research papers, they don't share a link, they don't do anything. अरे भैया, आप अगर लिख रहे हो और आप बता नहीं रहे हो, कोई पढ़ेगा नहीं, तो then are you writing Anne Frank's diary that you are just writing it, keeping it with you and hoping someday someone will see it magically and it will get published and everyone will read it? No. So I think you must work hard, you must not be pompous, and you must let people know what work you have done. There may be 100 people who will get jealous of you. There may be 100 people who see your achievement. Out of that, 90 people will get jealous of you. Let them go to hell. They are good for nothing. They have a negative mindset. Negative mindset people will never progress, forget law, life, nothing. Then there will be 10 people who are impressed by you. From those 10 people, maybe one person who is so happy with your work and he's senior, he may refer work to you. He may collaborate with you. Your target audience is that one person and one person only. Forget those 90 people or 99 people. So I think that is something which we as young professionals need to do.
Right, sir. Thank you. The next question is from Geeta ma'am. What is your advice to our students? What should be done and what shouldn't?
Sorry, can you repeat?
What is your advice to our students? What should be done and what shouldn't?
No, Geeta ma'am is better to answer that. We've all taken her advice at multiple points in life. But what should be done, what shouldn't be done, I think so broadly I can say, because this is a question which can go in multiple dimensions. But I think broadly I can just repeat an advice which I was given by Justice Chandrachud, Supreme Court judge. He told me to structure my internships. So I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was in my second year of college. He told me you should structure your internships. You should try and explore as much as you can, but you should explore to an extent and figure yourself out by your third year. Don't keep exploring, because then exploration की कोई limit नहीं है. You are not, so firstly, try and do a policy internship. He suggested me do a policy internship. That was with the Speaker of the Parliament, which I did. He suggested do a judicial internship. Try and see how the law is made. So you find out from a policy internship. Try and see how the law is the way law is interpreted, which you understand from a judicial internship. Try and see how the law is practiced, which you will see from a lawyer. Now in that there are multiple variations. You can practice with a High Court lawyer, Supreme Court lawyer, trial court lawyer, a lawyer on the civil and commercial side, a lawyer on the criminal side. There are multiple variations, permutation and combinations, but get that experience. Get whatever you get your hands on. And research, because people say in litigation particularly, आपको ज़्यादा पढ़ाई की ज़रूरत नहीं. I beg to differ. I beg to differ because when you are a counsel, your only job, primary job, is to read the briefs which have been given to you, explore propositions of law, read it, understand it, apply it in a different way, and make it fact specific to your client's case. That requires a degree of analytical mind, and an analytical mind can only come if you are to an extent academically sound. You need to know. So there are books here behind. I have read all of them. Now by reading all of them, I don't have any knowledge, but by reading them and then applying it to my facts and to my case, I come out with a new proposition. So I think research as a student is a luxury, and that luxury and a privilege must be exercised, right? So as a law student, I wrote a lot. By now I have published around 45 publications I've had so far in newspapers, in research, in journals, etc., etc. But now as a practicing lawyer, even if I want to, I don't have that luxury to do it as much as I would want. So a friend of mine recently told me write something on. She's a law clerk at the Supreme Court of Pakistan. They are launching a journal for comparative laws on India-Pakistan common law. So say we've inherited certain laws from the British. How was that law applied in India? How was that law applied in Pakistan? The way our respective courts have gone. Now, as much as I would want to sit and with pleasure read on it as much as I want and research and write, I cannot. I just cannot. So I have to rely on my team. I have to rely on my junior. I have to rely on my interns, and then just apply myself from like in terms of the propositions. So I think, but why I can do that comfortably is because I spent a lot of time in my law college days in research. So research is something which we must do. Second is moot courts must be done. Moot courts must be done, but that should be tempered with good research. So don't bother to do 5 moot courts. Maybe do 2 moot courts, but do your moot court in a best way possible. And the memorial you make, you may not win every moot court, but the memorial you make should be so unique in terms of the law point you have raised that you can convert that into a research paper. Because see, your memos are beautiful memos, but then they go in the dustbin. You will forget about it 5 years later. But if you have converted that into a journal or a research paper, you can fancifully display it in your library at home. It will always remain. And think about the beauty of research and the beauty of writing. In the world, we have an ocean full of knowledge. Okay, and every year, small droplets of further knowledge fall in that ocean, right? So that is in terms of new books being written, new research being done, everything. You may write one newspaper article or you may write one journal article, but do you ever think of it from the perspective that एक body of research है दुनिया में, एक ocean है, और उसमें आपने जब एक article छपाया, when you published an article, that droplet or that minuscule of a droplet has fallen in that vast ocean, and that will always remain. You will die someday, but your research and your study and your work will remain, and it will be referred to by other students, and it will then become into different variations and combinations, and it will live on and on and on. So one must think of doing something long lasting. And what else advice can I give? मैं इतना बूढ़ा तो हूँ नहीं कि I can give a lot of advice. But yes, I think just stay true to yourself, work hard, relax, chill, and just stay true to yourself. Be honest, be good. At the end of the day, be a good person. If you close your eyes and you can't sleep comfortably, what is the point of all of this? This pandemic, if anything, it has taught us that life is so short, life is so uncertain. If you are not doing anything which you like, so do what you like. Don't do. I was speaking to a girl recently. I was speaking to someone, a lawyer, yesterday, and she told me that I gave the she's a lawyer, and I gave us the CA exam which I didn't clear. I gave the CA exam. I said, why you did it? She's saying, because my parents told me. I'm also Gujarati. We now half of our college is Gujarati, 50%. So we Gujaratis have a thing: CA karo, CS karo, ye karo, wo karo, commerce karo. So I said you should not have done it. Do what you want. Do what you feel like doing. So for me, my parents are solicitors. They were not very comfortable with the idea of me doing an LLM. They thought it's a waste of time. They thought, what is this? You're doing so much research. You should come and work with us. You should come to office. You should maybe sign your solicitor articles. I did what I wanted to do. Initially, it was contrary to what they thought I should do, but I did what I wanted to do. They saw I'm giving them results, and then they supported me wholeheartedly. But initially, I did what I had to do, and which is why there is Robert Frost's poem, "The Road Not Taken," is my favorite poem. The two roads diverged in the wood, and I chose the road not less taken or not taken. So make your own road, yaar. I mean, you don't need to just follow whatever has been told. People listen to everyone, take everyone's advice into account, and do what you want to do. I think that's the best I can tell. By the rest, you have Geeta ma'am. She's someone we look up to.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. Sir, you've interacted with several luminaries and politicians throughout your journey as a law student. How can a young law student carve the same path, and what advice would you give them?
Why do you need to carve the same path? You don't need to be Harish Salve. You don't need to be Shah Rukh Khan. You don't need to be Janak Dwarkadas. वो लोग तो ये लोग यार एक फिल्म एक्टर है, दो लॉयर्स है बड़े बड़े, अरुण जेटली, big lawyer politician, and then there are small minions like us, Aditya. You don't need to be any of us. You do what you want to do and let people be inspired by you. And what about luminaries? What are you specifically asking about luminaries? I didn't understand your question.
So we mean that you have been sitting with a lot of people who are in higher positions. So how have you reached that stage in your life?
I think one road opens another and another road opens another. So I think for me, my breakthrough point was when I became the youngest Indian to speak before a committee of parliament in legislative history. That that opened a lot of doors for me. And I think what stood out was that I was doing my work first. So I was my first focus. This networking and all I have started doing now because now I'm a lawyer. But as a law student, my first focus was to do good quality work, and then your work speaks for itself. And so I'll give you a small example. Let me give an example, and maybe then that puts things in perspective. I used to write a lot of articles for the Kabul Times in Afghanistan. I used to write them because no one would publish my articles in India. I was nobody, and I was not Aditya Gandhi, or I was not Aditya. I didn't have a fancy surname attached to my name. So in India, a lot goes in my Bab culture. So Afghanistan people, they used to publish my articles. So they were nice to me. That was a prominent newspaper. So I started writing there. And this is a lot of your success or a lot of your contacts happens on your instinct. So I was dating a girl in Bhopal. Okay. She was in National Law School, Bhopal. she and I once we wrote an article which was published in a prominent newspaper there. Bhopal is a small city. It is a city of 30 lakh people. 30 lakh people. Now, in a smaller city, the educated class, the English speaking class, the upper gentry is limited. So 30 lakh people may live in that city, but that city is run by 200, 300 families. That's it. Always. That's a common logic. Now, many of them, many of them will be educated people who like to read your articles. Our articles were read. Now, because they were read, many people reached out personally. अरे भैया ये तो आपने आर्टिकल बहुत अच्छा लिखा है. अरे ये proposition अच्छा है. अरे ये कैसे सोचा आपने? So this remained in my head somewhere. Now I was writing in Afghanistan. Ultimately, Afghanistan has a population of 7 crore people, and Kabul is the main city. The Kabul Times is given to embassies in Afghanistan, in Kabul. I mean that time, now the Taliban has taken over. So I thought, okay, if I'm writing this, and many of my things which I wrote were directly challenging Pakistan from a legal perspective. And a thing common between normal Afghans and Indians is their common distrust or common fear of Pakistan. So that was appreciated quite a lot. And the spokesperson to the president of Afghanistan messaged me on Facebook. Hi Aditya, I have been reading your articles on Kabul Times. I really appreciate your article on Pakistan's Independence Day. From a legal perspective, you have written something. Can we get on the phone? We spoke on the phone. You have to. One more thing is, I think you must keep a friendly demeanor. You may be little less competent. But be friendly, be hardworking, and be honest. Then you will become competent automatically. So I was friendly, and I never had any intentions with him. I thought, what will Afghanistan do for me? I am sitting here. It's a war-torn country, war-ravaged country. He asked me, can you give me a research on XYZ? I did. I'm like, fine. Mera kya jata hai? I am getting to learn in the process. So I gave him some research. Then that relation continued. And one fine day, when I invited him to India for a conference, he thought, and he knew I want to apply for my LLM abroad. He himself said that, why don't you join us as special advisor on law, international law? So I became special advisor on international law to the office of the president of Afghanistan. Now this is something which you can't think of a Mumbai boy becoming this, but this happened just because of some insight, some networking, and a lot of hard work and honesty, and doing it without expectations of return. I think when you don't expect something, that time it comes in abundance. Similarly, I was working for the Sri Lankan Prime Minister's office, who was at that time leader of opposition. That meeting also was a chance meeting. So, things just magically happen, I feel. They happen when they have to happen.
Thank you, sir. The next question we have is, what is the procedure for applying for an LLM degree abroad? In which year do we start with this process, and what aspects should we pay most attention to in our applications?
Yeah, what is the procedure for LLM? Check it on the website. I think the website will reveal it better than my words. Many people ask this to me on LinkedIn. I didn't want to sound rude or arrogant, but it's not rude and arrogant. It is just common sense that if they have XYZ requirements, then you will not remember it at the tip of your tongue. If you right now ask Geeta ma'am what is the forms to be filled for admission in PGCL, she will also not remember. She says, read the form. Why are you asking me? Read the form. So similarly, procedure wise, check it on respective websites of colleges you want to apply. But broadly speaking, you need letters of recommendation. You need a statement of purpose. You need a good CV. And nothing beats good marks. Do everything, but you should have good marks. So I think broadly, I would tell everyone, score well, be in the top 5% of your college, write good research papers, do some moot courts, do some debates, then go do some internships, get some work experience, maybe get some work experience after graduation. So maybe work for a year or so somewhere, and then apply. It's as simple as that. But be more specific, because my advice is very vague right now. It will upset many of your participants. They'll say, this itna to humko bhi pata hai, isme kya naya bola. So be specific, then I'll be able to maybe tell you something better.
All right, sir. So the next question we have is, can you give some tips for a head start into litigation or corporate right after law school?
See, I think litigation, it depends on where you are located, but since most of our audience right now is a Mumbai audience, I would say that it is advisable that you work with a solicitor's firm for a couple of years. An advantage which I had, which is an advantage, and I have no qualms in saying it is an advantage, is that my parents have a solicitor's law firm in Mumbai. So for me, I started working there or being absorbed to the work and ins and outs of solicitors firms right since my childhood. So that was passively absorbed by me all throughout. But for a first gen lawyer, I would suggest that work in a solicitor's firm or a full service law firm. In Mumbai, we have solicitors firm. If you're an audience from Delhi, I would say work with an AOR, advocate on record. If you are in Mumbai, I would say work with a solicitor. Work for 2 years, maybe sign your solicitor articles with them. You may not become a solicitor, but sign your articles with them so that you get an insight into how a full service law firm works. After that, I would say that join a council's chamber, work under a council. So ideally join a younger council. So I have at this time I have 3 juniors working under me. I am 26. My juniors are 23. So I am a young counsel. They have joined me. It should be someone who has work. I mean, they should be having enough work to keep you busy. Don't make money your first consideration. In litigation, we don't get a salary. We get paid on case to case basis. So whatever case you have been allotted, you will get paid. Similarly, I do the same thing. I have four or five seniors who regularly give me junior briefs in Delhi. So they have a matter which comes to them. They say, Aditya, you prepare everything. You brief us. He'll argue. I'll prepare everything. So similarly, you have to have that sort of an arrangement where you are given freedom to work. So I have an intern right now with me in Delhi, Rafid. Rafid is a third-year law student. He reached out to me on LinkedIn. Sincere guy, good boy. I gave him one work just as a test case. I told my friend colleague Bhavyata that you allot Rafid some work. So she allotted it and he did a stellar job. I was impressed. So I gave him further work. I said, you do this, you draft that. Now he's an intern, but he's doing better work than many lawyers, advocates. So I think if you get someone who gives you an opportunity to work and does not bother about your age. Now technically this boy is just a law student. So you may be a lawyer with just 2 years work experience, whatever it is. Join an office where you get work. Don't bother about money initially. So my father tells me that until you are 30, you must not really chase money, or you must not chase money at any point of time. And especially until you are 30, you must chase working in a place where you grow as an intellectual. Your knowledge increases, your experience increases. So work in that sort of a chamber. It may not be a fancy name. It may not be a big name. And then after you do that for a couple of years, so 4 or 5 years are done. So you're 23 when you graduate, you're 28 by the time you do all that I tell you to do. Maybe in between you do your LLM for a year. So 28, 29, and then you start your own practice, you start your own chamber. So don't be very money obsessed. Leave anything when you get too comfortable. If it's not challenging you, then something is wrong. If you're comfortable with XYZ and you're relaxed, then it's wrong. You should do something which keeps challenging you, and be surrounded by winners. Be surrounded by people also who are chasing something, so you can be part of their journey. He achieves something, you achieve something along with them. So I think that is one thing I will advise. And corporate, to yaar, that is a very simple life. There is no particular advice. I would say corporate karna hai. I have another intern, Tejasvi. He is interested in corporate. So he has worked with a lot of law firms in across India, top law firms, small law firms. He's kept interning there and networking in those firms. Now, after he graduates, one of them will just absorb him they will give him a PPO and they'll absorb him as an associate. As an associate, जो आपका senior partner बोलता है वो काम करो, do that work, you are doing well, and you will keep getting promoted and promoted and promoted. So corporate, I think, is very simple. Litigation is where it is little complicated, and there I strongly suggest you must work with someone for some time. Here in Delhi, especially, I've come across many people who just start off directly. Now it may appear I have started off directly, but there is a background to me. I have worked since I was a child. I have been absorbed to that environment. And you must initially also, one more thing is learn everything. Don't think kuch chota bada hai. So first thing, I have done filings in the court. I've gone to the registry. I've used the ink mark or the white ink. I have used white ink. I have put paste. I have removed objections. I have gone with a clerk. I have lifted papers. I know which registry official will do what. I know who has to be dealt with how. I know when my clerk is lying to me. So you should follow what Dhirubhai Ambani did with Mukesh. Mukesh Ambani, he started off in the warehouse of Reliance Industries. So you should know the smallest work so that when you become a boss, your staff cannot take you for a ride. So you should know everything top to bottom. I think that's my advice.
Thank you, sir. The next question we have is it advisable for one to go for LLM if they want to pursue litigation?
Of course, I right now told you that you as a counsel require more academic depth than anyone else. People say litigation is all about practicing, but unless you can interpret the law, understand the law, unless you understand multiple dimensions, how will you develop a proposition of law? How will you put it forward? Apart from that, I think from a branding perspective also it is good. I think if you have a fancy degree, you may not learn a lot, but India and countries around India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, I think we still have that colonial mindset where we think anything from abroad is good. We cannot fight everyone beyond a point every time. We cannot just be fighter cops. So I think it is appreciated in our country when you have a foreign degree, and if you have a foreign degree from a top law school. So it helps you in branding. It helps you in. So now I am representing a batch of 1,391 people from Pune. It's a big case. Questions were raised that this boy is just 26 years old. How can you ensure that he does a litigation which runs into 1,000 plus crores? There, someone who liked me, admired me, he said that, boss, he has a Cambridge degree, he's a Cambridge graduate. That speaks to his intelligence. Now, I may be intelligent. There may be someone who may be more intelligent than me, but branding makes a difference. He could convince his people that ये 1,391 people को कि ये भैया ये Cambridge graduate. Now, that what I learned in Cambridge may be of zero utility in this case, but branding makes a difference. Number one, and secondly, learning and growing as an intellectual. I think doing an LLM is the least you can do. If I had the luxury, I would have done a PhD, but I don't have that luxury. I am not a Singhvi or a Lekhi. I am not a Singhvi or a Lekhi or a Rohatgi or etc. or a Chandrachud that I can do a PhD and come back to India and the entire market is up waiting for me. Ki, Aditya has come, chalo give him a matter. I have to make my own mark. I don't have a surname. But if you have a surname, see, there is nothing wrong. If you are born in a good family, nothing is good. All families are good. If you are born in a so-called surname family, then take that to your advantage. Use everything to your advantage. If you can do a PhD, if you have the luxury to do it. I didn't have that luxury.
Okay, so the last question for today is, can you tell us how you figured out you want to work in litigation at the Supreme Court back in law school?
Yes, I did. Because I was since my young days, rather since 7th grade. So my parents are lawyers, but my inspiration behind entering law and hopefully policy making someday, politics someday, was Arun Jaitley, India's former finance minister. So he was someone I had not met, but he was my guru. So he was Guru Dronacharya for me. and someone, a guru you have not met, a guru you have not spoken to, a guru you have not seen in person, but a guru nonetheless. So I was very inspired by him. I liked how he spoke. I liked how he articulated. I liked how the way he put his arguments were such that a judge or someone listening to that person will feel bad in not giving the order. They'll think we are a bad person. I'm a bad person to not give this man an order. This man is so reasonable. He had that art. He had that art of making friends despite being from a party which is criticized many times. He had, of course, any party you're criticized, but he had the art of making friends. And he was also into policy making, something I have been interested in. And I think I am not I am good only as a lawyer. I would fail in everything else. I think so. Apart from law, I don't think there was anything else. I would have been a horrible chartered accountant. I would have had medical negligence cases against me if I was a doctor. If I was a pilot, I would not be speaking right now. That plane would have long crashed. So I think one needs to know one's own skills also. And I think for me, it was always litigation since the word go. But it need not necessarily be so that you are very convinced about what you want to do since the beginning. So as I say, as Justice Chandrachud told me, explore as much as you can until your third year. Do diversified internships. Do thematic internships. So a theme has to be there. ऐसे ही नहीं, अरे चलो इसको लिंक्डइन पे लिख दिया, इसने चलो जवाब दे दिया, चलो 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 यहाँ जाते, चलो 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 वहां जाते. No, make a thematic internship. So a policy internship, a judicial internship, an NGO internship, a practicing lawyer internship, a regulatory body internship, a thematic internship, a research associate internship. वैसा सब कुछ करो themes वाला. बट थर्ड ईयर तक खत्म करो अपना एक्सप्लोरेशन. फोर्थ फिफ्थ ईयर में डू व्हाट यू हैव फिगर्ड आउट यू शुड बी डूइंग. आइडियल, दिस इज व्हाट इज आइडियल. वी कैन टेक अ फ्यू मोर क्वेश्चंस. आई हैव 10 minutes. If anyone from the audience wants to ask something.
So the next question we have is, what are career opportunities in international law?
So Ayush is asking what are career opportunities in international law. International law, see, you firstly, basics of international law is, see, my degree is international commercial litigation, commercial law, but it is, heading is international law. So it is LLM international law, subjects are commercial law, but it is heading is international law. I have also worked as a special advisor to Afghan president. I have worked with Mahinda Rajapaksa, etc., etc., etc. I think first thing which you require, and I was also offered to represent a country as their law advisor in the United Nations. So this was a job offer I had when I got my Cambridge admission. Obviously, I would not forsake Cambridge for anything, so I had to respectfully decline that post. But I think you should firstly have a LLM. Without an LLM, no international organizations even want to open your CV. Let alone consider, they'll not open it. So a LLM is a must if you want to have an international law practice. In fact, an LLM is also considered as normal. They want a PhD. If nothing short of a PhD is entertained mostly. But you can do an LLM and then you can be a research associate to some United Nations body. You can be a research associated to the UNDP, to United Nations Development Program, to the International Court of Justice. You can work in the WTO. I have also studied trade law. You can work as a paralegal in a law firm abroad. But a PhD is ideally required if you want to be considered seriously and be even spoken to normally by any of those stalwarts. So a PhD is a must, ideally. Then of course, countries have their own posts. So if you know the top head of a country, then he can bypass everything for you. So for me, it was, I could, for one particular country, I knew the head of state. So he was kind enough to offer me to represent us in the United Nations. But I was lucky that he knew me. Otherwise, there was no application process to work. There is no application process to become chief minister. There is no application process to become prime minister, cabinet minister. There is no application process. Some things happen on your personal charisma. But if you are looking for job-based applications where you're applying, then I would say then you should have an LLM as a minimum. Even go kholo abhi, in fact, if you are online, just open any website, United Nations job offers mein career section mein it comes. Check it. They all say master's degree required, master's degree required. So do that. And then once you have done that, you're in the best place. Your teachers will only guide you, advise you. Baki, the thing good about abroad is they have proper application processes for everything, which exhaustively lays down every requirement needed. So that itself, you have to just fill that form and then hope for the best.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, it is a common perception that in litigation, there is a lot of hassle and pushing around by the system and because of red tapeism. What is the actual scenario like?
That is correct. There is a lot of hassle. There is a lot of pushing around. So you need to know, you need to get work firstly. For that, you need to be taken seriously. You need to be knowledgeable. You need to do your hard work. And then you need to make your way around it. So you need to be rough and tough for litigation. You cannot be a softie. If you are, then you won't survive. That is particularly so for you may have colleagues, you may have people who claim to be your friends. They may just steal your client. What will you do then? What will you do? You can't fight with them. So you have to be impressive enough that no one feels like leaving you. Number one. Number two, in court, a judge may try and dominate you. A judge may try and push you down. You have to have a no holds barred attitude. You have to be confident and respectful to the judge. I'll give you an example. You will be tried to be pushed out by a senior counsel. So there was this case. I was representing a state government in the Supreme Court. Not representing, let me not use a fancy word. I was sent by the Advocate General of the state ke jaake date leke aao. Get a date, 1 week later date. Now I know how dynamics can change overnight in Supreme Court. So I read the matter properly. Although I had to take a date, I read it. I knew the matter frontwards and backwards. I said that my lords, the learned Advocate General of the state has been engaged to represent in this particular case. The senior counsel opposing said, my lords, let's not trouble the Advocate General. This is a case we can dispose of today. Let's not trouble him. Let me make a short submission. And he started arguing. I was sent to take a date. And if that order was passed against us, the chief minister would have maybe scolded the Advocate General, or God knows what would have happened. And I had the trust of the Advocate General. So I heard everything. I said, my lords may permit me to say one thing. Firstly, without prejudice, I have not been engaged to represent the state in this case. But without prejudice, without my lords recording my arguments, I have some submissions to make. That my learned senior friend is not referring to an explicit statutory provision which makes his arguments fall flat on the ground. My lords must ask my learned friend as to why he is not doing it. I again reiterate that I am saying this without prejudice. The Advocate General has been engaged to argue. I am not authorized to, but I must, as an officer of the court, let my lords know about this. Then the senior counsel, because he got stuck, he didn't expect a junior who has come to take a date to be prepared with the matter. So then he said that let's not trouble my young friend. He has just been called to take a date. Let the Advocate General appear. We don't want to put him in trouble. Then the judge told him, no, you cannot have it both ways. Now you answer this. What is your answer on this submission made? So he had no answer. His petition was dismissed. So this is a practical example I am giving you of how you can be pushed by a senior advocate, and you have been sent only to take a date by your senior, and opposing counsel may not have the magnanimity, not have the decency to think that it's a junior lawyer who's appearing and he will be in trouble if he loses. See, in the bar, when we are lawyers, we have to be courteous to each other. We have to take care of each other. And seniors for juniors are like kids. So the way to take care of kids, you have to take care of kids. So many times seniors will not do that. So you have to be prepared to deal with those seniors also. So you have to be, I would say, you gunda. You have to be a gunda. You have to be an educated gunda to survive in litigation. You can't be a sissy. You can't survive that way. I have 5 more minutes.
Okay. So can we learn more about
Law
your
Clerk,
experience?
there is a Law Clerk. Just write my name, Aditya Manubarwala, on YouTube. There is a video by Law Seekho. It is 1.5 hour long. तो उसमें सब मिल जाएगा आपको. I think that would answer everything. It's very exhaustive. Baki Shruti is saying the court, lawyer, police, or entire we see in movies is true or just hypothetical. Abhi, that I'll have to meet Shruti separately to talk. That is something I can't talk here. It's very vague. Then क्या लिखा है? Is it true that lawyers receive threats by opposition? If yes, have you received any threat? Um, I have not received threat by a lawyer. I mean, in my capacity as a lawyer, I have received threats when I was on TV, and I was called upon to speak as a lawyer, and I received a threat from somebody in Pakistan. So it was a threat that how can you say this way XYZ? I said I'm saying XYZ for the following reasons, and you want to threaten me, then I am in fact aiding and assisting your process. This is my address, A395 Defense Colony, New Delhi. Come and let's talk. So sometimes you have to be a little gutsy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work, then you will find it in the news. The lawyer shot dead. But most of the time that doesn't happen because most people are trolls. Trolls hide under the luxury of their computer screen or mobile screen. They don't have courage. They are weak. They harass people. They harass women. Many of women particularly they harass. And a troll has to be dealt with in a language that the troll understands. And what is this, sir? You are, and similarly, if you're a lawyer and someone threatens you, so you don't need to be, people who issue a threat are generally the ones who don't execute it. The ones who have to execute it will just execute it. They will never give you a threat. Sir, you are requested to. Recently, I went in a negotiation against a big corporate, and they had their entire team in front, and I was there. This same case which I said, 1,391 people, and they were saying certain patently false things. I was there quietly sitting, listening. Then they were saying something wrong. I intervened. He said, "No, you cannot intervene. You cannot speak. How are you speaking?" I said, "I will speak. I will speak, and this is right. This is what I am speaking. It must go on the records of the minute." "No, I'll not let you speak." I say, "I will speak. I will continue to speak. You can stop me only if you physically restrain me, and yet I will speak." So sometimes you have to do these. You have to have these occasions where you do something just to make a statement. It's not law is not always just the law. It is much more than the law. What is Kumar asking, sir? You're requested to please say something on issues faced by non-NLU students. Non-NLU students face many issues even in getting internships. Can you, sir? Yes, non-NLU students face that issue. It is what it is. I was non-NLU. We have to fight it out. Not everyone is bad. I think there are many people who believe in merit, people who believe in not judging only on the basis of your college. I think there is an entire movement happening on that these days. We can see it on LinkedIn. Definitely, there is an issue. NLUs think we are Dalits, they are Brahmins. It's an unofficial caste system. Many students don't think that. I mean, we should not even target NLUs. I mean, उनकी तो गलती नहीं है ना. They got admission in an NLU. It's not their fault. There should just not be any elitism. I think that's what I feel.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank
I'm
you.
afraid we have exhausted our time. Thank you
Yes.
so much for answering the queries and sharing your insights. I now request Rashi to give the vote of thanks.
On behalf of the Moot Court Society of Praveen Gandhi College of Law, I, Rashi Priya, would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Advocate Aditya Manubarwala for sparing his precious time to share his valuable insights with all of us. It was indeed an enriching and invigorating session that provided us with a great understanding of how to pursue litigation and about the different paths that a law aspirant can take after completing their formal education. I can surely guarantee that the participants have truly learned a lot and gained clarity over what to do with their future. I would also like to thank you for the smooth communication throughout the preparation of this event. we hope to see you again soon. So, lastly, I would like to thank our principal in charge and our institution, SV Kem's Rajiv Gandhi College of Law, for providing us with the opportunity to undertake such events and always encouraging us. Most of all, I'd like to thank our faculty in charge, Dr. Geeta Khutsar, for persistently guiding us. I cannot thank everyone enough, and especially our participants, for their dedication and inquisitiveness and enthusiasm that they have shown contributing towards conducting this session. With this, we officially conclude the session for today. Thank you. Now, sir, before you leave, I would request for a photo. And for the same, I would request the participants to turn on their camera.
Oh, great. Will everyone be visible?
Yes.
Okay, that's nice. Where is Geeta ma'am? बोल दो बॉस चीज कब बोलना है बोल दो.
What's up?
Two. Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over. And
Thank you so much, sir, for
thanks to all of
being
you.
here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.